Friends, Jordan Montgomery here, and we're glad that you've tuned into another episode of the Growth Over Goals podcast. Before we jump into today's conversation, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Thompson & Co. Salon and Parlor. Thompson & Co. Salon and Parlor is a family-owned, stylist-owned community salon that fits the needs for all types of families. Located in downtown Iowa City and now a second location at Coralville, North Liberty area, TCO specializes in all things hair. In fact, that's where I've been getting my hair done for the last 7 years. TCO specializes in hair cutting, razor cutting, the most modern color techniques, and high-end hair extensions. As one of Iowa's only intercoiffure salons and Salon Today's top 200 salons in the U.S., TCO looks forward to being the salon of choice for you and those you love. Be sure to call or book on their website today at thompsonandcosalon.com. Thank you, TCO, for all you do for us and our community. Welcome back to the Growth Over Goals podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Montgomery. You know, it's always fun when you just get to sit down with a friend. We interview a lot of friends on this podcast, but there's some people we interview who are like first time, guests, or they are maybe coming to us on an initial conversation. And then sometimes you get the folks who you get to hang with that you know well. And we just have a conversation while listeners listen in. And so that's what we're doing today. I'm sitting down with my friend, Graham Cochran. Let me tell you about Graham. Family man, man of faith, best-selling author, keynote speaker, podcast host of a top-rated podcast from Tampa, Florida. He's got a new book coming out, Rebel. Find yourself by not following the crowd. John Gordon, our mutual friend, wrote the foreword for this book. It's going to be on bookshelves everywhere. Check it out. Launching early September. Today, we get to hear about Rebel from the man himself. Graham Cochran, thanks for being on the show.
Bro, I've been looking forward to this all week, man. I love your energy. I love how you show up in the world, and it's going to be fun to hang out.
Hey, dude, you are one of the best question askers I've ever spent time with. You're an incredible relationship builder. You're a great question asker. So it's a joy to ask you the questions today and put you on the hot seat and to hang with you and to learn from you. You're helping people with their identity. You're helping people with the issue of comparison. You're helping people stay in their lane, live out the life that God created them to live, walk in their gifts. I so much respect that about you. You do a lot of things. I mean, we could take this conversation in probably 12 different directions. We were talking about that offline, but today we're going to say a lot about a little. I want you to talk about Rebel. I want you to talk about this new book. First question, why, Graham, did you decide to write this book specifically?
Man, I almost feel like God told me to write it, so I probably wouldn't have written it at this season of my life. And maybe that's, I've heard you write the book that you most need to read. And I feel like maybe God was saying, I think you need this book, so I want you to write it now. But I credit John Gordon, our mutual friend, because I was leaning into him about a year ago. I was like, hey, I want to get into more speaking. I want to do like what you do, Jordan. I want to get on more physical stages. I've been in the digital space for like 14 years, webinars, podcasting, YouTube, and it's lonely. It's lonely with the camera by yourself. Yeah. I'm all by myself, Oh, and I'm a theater kid. I'm a musician. I miss the stage. And so I remember thinking, I want to get back into physical stages. And I had written my first book, How to Get Paid for What You Know, which is more around the business model that I've been running and teaching. And so when I met up with John, I was like, hey, man, teach me how to be a great speaker like you. And how do you think about speaking and booking gigs? And he said, no. He's like, first, tell me what's the next book? What's the next book? I said, John, I just wrote a book. Can I just take a break? I don't know. I don't know what the second one is. And so it was in that day where he really pressed me on the message of the second book. And this idea came to us mostly because he was asking me about my story. And I'll always credit him for the name of the book, because he said, bro, after hearing my story, wanted to be a rock star, that dream not happening. Everyone told me to go to college. I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to be a musician. I wanted to do something creative. I didn't want to sit at a cubicle and all these winding turns. He said, bro, you don't do what people tell you to do you? You're a rebel. You're a rebel. And I was like, rebel? I was like, that's not language I use for myself or I've ever thought of. But the moment those words came out, and you know what it's like, Jordan, when you get those epiphanies, those ideas. Erwin McManus, he's brilliant, but he said something about he was having an epiphany one day about how to have more epiphanies. Like it feels like one of those things where like you have this epiphany of, oh, dude, that's a word that sums up the way I have felt. And I need to write this book. And here's just for people to understand, this is how I define a rebel, because a lot of images might come to your mind when you hear that word. Like, I'm a Star Wars guy. It's like the Rebel Alliance. And like,
come on,
we're going to take down Darth Vader. And, it's like, it's kind of that. You're standing against something. And the thing we're standing against, and I posit this in the book, is conformity. Conformity is the enemy. And we can go into this a little bit. I believe there's a sea, there's like a current, it's like a river, and it's cultural, it's at large, it's your family culture, it's the people you hang out with, but it's drifting, it's going somewhere, and that's conformity. If you don't do anything, you'll go somewhere where conformity goes. And so being a rebel is going the opposite direction and having the courage, right, to show up as your truest self, your most authentic self, full of all your creativity, joy, talents, all of that, even when the world pushes back. That's been my story from day one, and it's what I try to help people unpack in the book.
Well, the best message that you ever deliver is the one that you live, and you're living this, so take us back before we get into the book, because we're about to get practical for our listeners, but take us back to your story. You kind of alluded to it. You've got a great story, man. And it is a story about being a rebel and choosing your own path and listening to God's voice. So, who is Graham Cochran for our listeners? Take us back to your early 20s, and then how did you arrive to where you're at today?
I mean, I would not be doing what I'm doing today if I actually got my first dream. My dream, like I said, was to be a rock star. And so I had a natural talent for music. People validated it. It was like the one thing I was really good at and really enjoyed. And so I just tried hard to make it happen. I tried to sign a record deal. My goal was to have a record deal by the time I graduated college, made an album, producers out of Nashville, session players, got good people on it. We shopped it around. And when I look back at it, it's like, it's okay. Like, it's kind of embarrassing. It was okay. But I took it seriously and I gave it my best shot. And I had mentors that were like, believed in me. Like, I think these songs are good. I think you have a chance. And I had met my now wife, then fiance, Shay, really young. Like, she was 17. I was 19 when we met, and we dated through college. So by the time I was graduating as a 22-year-old, I had already proposed. We were going to get married. And I was like, I need advance money. Like, I need a deal. Doesn't have to be a ton of money, but I need some money. This has to be my job. And so when those deals were like drying out and there weren't any deals that had money attached to them, there were these things called development deals, which are like, we'll sign you to our roster of artists, but we're not going to pay you anything. We'll just see what you do. And if we think you're going to crush it, then we'll put more money on it as it goes. And I was like, that's not going to work for me. Like, I have to make money. And so that was the first time that I had a really, really tough decision. Do I pursue what I feel like I'm meant to do? Or do we take care of this beautiful woman and be responsible? And I chose to give up on the dream. I chose to get a job. And this is something I talk about in the book about, I call it the identity crisis intersection. Okay, you have a dream. We all have a dream. And that dream could be a financial dream. That could be a career dream. It could be a relationship dream. I want to get married. I want to have a kid. Then that dream dies. The career falls apart. In my case, the music dream died. You end in divorce. You lose that child, or you can't get pregnant. Whatever it is, it's the same pain. I wanted this. It's a good thing. I lost it if I had it, or never got it, or got close. That dream dies. What do you do next? You're at this place that, like, I call it an identity crisis intersection, because our dreams aren't just dreams. They reflect our identity. There's so much attached to them. That's why they hurt so much, because it's like part of us dying. And so we have a choice. It's like a fork in the road. You can either go left or right. And the left is the path of conformity. That's like well, that was stupid. Not going to dream again. Not going to do that again. That marriage ended. I'm not going to do that again. That was too painful or too embarrassing or shameful. Or for me, it was the music died. I told everyone I was going to be a musician for a living. And everyone asked me, how's that going? Super embarrassing. I told myself I will never dream again. Like, basically, I'm going to just be a good person, put my head down, get a good job, pay my taxes, go to church, like just live a normal life and try to pretend like I'm happy. That's the path of conformity. That is a choice. But the other choice at that intersection is to dream again. That might mean go again at the same dream. That might mean dream something a little bit different. It took me 4 years to figure that part out. I wandered for 4 years in corporate America, retail, selling jewelry and video games. I sold radio advertising at a country radio station in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Like I sucked at all these jobs. I hated all of them. But that brought me to age 26 in Tampa when I moved with my wife. We came here to plant a church. I was going to be the worship leader. There was no money, so I was all volunteer. And lost 2 jobs during the Great Recession, right after we bought our house, right after my first daughter, Chloe, was born. And so then we were out of money, burned through savings. We were on food stamps. They call it SNAP now, but we were on food stamps for 18 months. I mean, like this is where I'm 26 now. And I'm like, I'm not only not a rock star, I'm broke. And now I have 3 mouths to feed and a mortgage. And like, what am I doing with my life? And that was the point where I realized this whole conformity thing, this whole like, I thought I chose the safe route. I thought I chose the responsible route. And there's good things to it. But why do I still burn inside? Why am I still upset and angry and resentful? And I hadn't allowed myself to dream again. And so that's when God gave me this idea for a business back in 2009. But that started me down this new path of what I do now, what I've done for 15 years. And that's even evolved. And it's interesting how very similar it looks to the rock star dream in terms of that dream wasn't wrong. It was a giant clue as to the way I'm wired and I'm designed. And so the big part of what I try to share in the book is, because I'm feeling this in real time. I felt it 14 years ago. My whole life is alignment is a big question. Are we in alignment? Do we even know who we are so that we can walk in alignment so we're not feeling that friction, that frustration, that disappointment?
So I want our listeners to know this. Just so y'all know, this guy's got a crazy voice. You're still a vocalist for your church. So that dream, you were validated in that gift. And I also wanted our listeners to know that you have lived out this message. This has been a part of your story. You've been through some really hard stuff. There's somebody listening who had a dream that just died. If that's you, listen up, because Graham's about to help you. Graham, Rory said this on our podcast last week. Rory Vaden said you're most qualified to help the person that you used to be. I think that's got to be at least in part why you wrote this book. You want to help some people who are going through indecision. They had a dream die. They're trying to listen to God's call on their life and make some decisions about what they want their life to look like moving forward. You say in this book, Rebel, that so many people need to wake up from the sleepy autopilot way of living. My question would be, how are you helping people do that? But then also, why do you think that's such an issue? Why are so many people willing to conform and be on autopilot, living out their life?
Man, it's a good question. There's a bunch of reasons we conform because we want what other people want. You know, they call it mimetic desire. Like I see you wanting that car, so maybe I should want that car. Or you want to live that type of lifestyle. Maybe that's what I should want. So we want what other people want. There's a lot of groupthink. We have a herd mentality where it feels safer to be a part of the crowd. There's also cultures, and it's interesting. I coach people all over the world, and so I've learned a lot more about how other cultures view this. I have a gentleman in the UK, a gentleman in Australia, who both have described, and there's also one in Norway, I believe, that describes a very similar thing I've heard called the tall poppy syndrome, where like you don't want to, if you're having too much success or doing something different than everyone around you, the culture around you in a lot of these countries says, stop being different, like be more like us, come back down, like be average. They want to chop down the tall poppy in the field. And so some cultures don't support you being different when we're all actually very different. We try to act like we're the same. We have a world that says we celebrate diversity, but we don't celebrate diversity at all. We want everyone to be the same. Here's the path, be like this, keep your head down. And that could be like, for me, go to college, have 2.5 kids, like always be in debt, like whatever, like we're supposed to be the same, have the same aspirations, but we're not designed that way. So I think part of it is the culture, but Jordan, I think part of it is, dude, we're exhausted. It's too exhausting to do something different. I think a lot of us are just abdicating our decision-making. We're not thinking about how to have a healthy marriage because it's too exhausting to think about that. So we just do what comes naturally, which is not going to lead anywhere good. We don't think about how to manage our money. Like you have a history of helping people with their money. And I know you help financial advisors. Like that's that takes effort to do something different with your money to get a different result. And you might want that different. You might not like the situation you're in, but there's so much friction to get past. So because I come home every day and I'm tired from work and life and whatever, and the news is negative and everyone's negative, I just don't have the energy. So I just abdicate my decision making and let culture, let conformity basically make those decisions for me without me realizing. So I think that's a huge reason why we conform. It's just that it's the most natural path of least resistance.
Well, I can relate to that. I think we all can, right? It's like, man, I'm thinking about last night, tucking my kids into bed and praying with them and saying goodnight. Like, man, I'm sitting down. It's been a long day. Like, as much as I want to have an increased desire for those things and move toward those things quickly, I was feeling pretty comfy, man. I'm half asleep. My kid, I'm like, it's 7:30. It's been a long day. Like, I'm starting to doze, and I'm like, man, I got to get off the couch and go tuck my kids in and pray. And like, small microcosm in my life, man, I'm just not always wired for what's best. I'm wired toward the path of least resistance. I hate admitting that. And then back to your earlier point, I think people do tend to criticize what they understand the least. So I think there's two things working against us, right? It's like path of least resistance, but I also think like, man, if you're going to be different, you should also expect that there will be people who don't like that and tend to criticize you. And you've stepped out, Graham, into some unique spaces. And I know you've faced that yourself as you've thought about your dreams and where you want to take your life. Again, there's somebody listening who's trying to figure out what their next step is. You write about this in the book Rebel, about figuring out what your dreams really are. So we want to move toward God's call on our life. We don't want to conform. But how do I understand like what God really has for me? Live into my God-given giftedness, Graham, and build a life in that direction. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. It's hard for a relatively short book to solve it for you, but I put together what I feel like is a clear path. I have a framework that I call the Rebel framework. It's very easy because it's an acronym. It does spell the word rebel, but it's like a coaching session in a book of like, if I were to work with you and try to figure this stuff out, we're not going to solve it in a session. We're not going to even solve it in a couple of months working together, but here is the path you would take to figure this stuff out so that at the end of the path, you're living in alignment, because alignment is so important. Because if you try to do something you're not designed to do, at best, what will come out of you won't be good. At best, it just won't be good. And so you're never going to be successful. And at worst, though, you're going to break because you're trying to do something you're not designed to do. The example I talk about in the book is the Nespresso machine that I have at home. It's like, it's so beautiful, right? It's an automatic espresso maker. You put beans in the top and it grinds it up with the blade and it spits out a cappuccino or a Americano, espresso, whatever. It's beautiful. And right next to it is a blender. And my wife makes smoothies with it and green juices and all the healthy stuff. And it's as if my espresso maker is looking at the blender and saying, I could make a smoothie. Yeah, everybody likes smoothies. Why can't I make a smoothie? I'm just like the blender. We both have a hole at the top where you put food in. We both have a blade that spins around and chops it up. I can do this. Let me do this. And yet you and I both know if we were to put frozen bananas and frozen strawberries and some protein powder and some almond milk in the top of my espresso maker and shove it in there and press the button, at best, if we're lucky, what comes out of it will be disgusting. And at worst, the machine will break. It's just not meant for that. And that's how we're living. We are operating out of alignment. That's why life is frustrating so much of the time. There's external circumstances that we can't control, but we're frustrated, I think, over half the time because of our own operating out of alignment. We're causing our own frustration, disappointment, because it takes the work to figure out who we are. So long answer to your question, there's a 5-part process. The first step is to resolve to dream again. This is the R in Rebel. And this is the most important one because we either have been jaded from our dreams like I was, I'm not going to dream again, told that you shouldn't dream, you just do what your parents told you to do, or world says dreaming is stupid, it's foolish, that's for kids. Like, it's the real world. You got to go add value, and that means you have to do something you hate or something that's like going to pay a lot of money. So we don't actually pay attention to our dreams. And our dreams, I think God gives us, when I say dreams, that language is sometimes like a red herring for people. Like they get distracted by the word dream. So swap in any word you like: desires, wants, hopes, things that you want in life, big or small. Like your dreams could be, I take people through the book through a 50 dreams exercise. 50 things you want to do, be, or have. It's really hard for people to do this. It was hard for me to do this years ago, especially if you have a culture that you grew up in of like, don't talk about what you want, focus on other people. And there's a high humility, which is a good thing. But I lost touch with what I wanted because I was told what you want doesn't matter. Just serve other people. So I lost touch with who I was, because the point isn't to have all your dreams come true. That's not the point. Although God does want us to enjoy life, and he gives us 1 Timothy 6, all things richly to enjoy. Jesus says he came that our joy might be full. So he does value joy. But our dreams are clues. They're giant clues. They're like giant flashing lights to, hey, this is how Jordan's wired. Like this dream Jordan has, it could be a dream to learn a language, go to a certain city, try a certain food, try a hobby, achieve this certain thing. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a data point to the way you're designed and the way you're wired. Why wouldn't you pay attention to that? It might not be a complete thing to figure out your wants and dreams, but it is a starting point. It's the most foundational. I say it this way, dreaming isn't foolish. It's foundational to who you are. And you got to start there.
So good. Our mutual friend, Chad Johnson, was just speaking at a retreat, Graham, and he said something that reminded me of what you just said. He said so many people, when they think about a desire or they have a dream, the narrative in their head is, well, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. In other words, I couldn't really do that. I can't really accomplish that. That is too good to be true. Chad said, what if it was this? What if it was too good to be true, it's probably God. The point is, I think God does put desires in us. I think he gives us dreams. I think, to your point, I think those are signs, but so many times we're not listening because, it's too good to be true. Instead of, hey, if it's too good to be true, maybe it's God. Maybe God's trying to show me something here. And maybe I just need to sit with that and pray on it and not jump, out of emotion or move too quickly. But I do think we miss signs. I think we're, all too often we aren't paying attention to the signals, that God's trying to reveal to us. And I think part of the reason for this is we have narratives in our head that we allow to exist that don't take us down the path toward God's design for our life. You address this in the book Revel. You talk about, this sort of harmful narrative that sometimes we don't attack or pay attention to. How does one go about dealing with a harmful narrative or correcting that narrative to make it more positive?
Yeah, man. I mean, our mutual friend John Gordon is a wizard at this. I've just been rereading The One Truth, high state of mind, low state of mind. But there's something there of, it's a story. So in the book, the third part of the Rebel framework is the break. You have to break negative thoughts, habits, and patterns. And you do have to do some work. It's like there's bad code. And instead of adding new code, or I'm going to go chase this new dream, you have to rip off the bad code and rebuild the software. And so it is just a story we tell ourselves. Like, we're humans, we operate in story. Everything is story. That's how we communicate. That's how we understand. It's how we learn. Like, the data is pretty powerful on what story does for us as humans. We're storytellers, and that makes sense. God is a storyteller. And so we're telling ourselves a story every day. And most of us, we have a loud inner story. It is a loud inner story. So in the book, I walk you through what I call an inner story audit, where you basically get it. You have to get it out of your head. You don't even know you're doing it, or you might be loosely aware, but you're not sure of what the details are that you're telling yourself. So there's like 6 questions I take people through of figuring out what the story is that you're telling yourself, and getting it out. Because when you get it out, you're I'm so mean to myself, or like, that's not even true. So it becomes smaller when you see it. But like, how in Scripture it talks about how God speaks in a still small voice. It might be Elijah that he has this experience, right? God wasn't in the hurricane or the fire or the earthquake, but there was a still small voice. If you're not a person of faith, people call it intuition. They call it a hunch. I believe it's the Holy Spirit who speaks to us. God whispers, right? I've heard it said that God speaks through his word primarily. He speaks through wisdom. He speaks through the whisper. Like, that's when he speaks to you directly. It's never loud. It's always quiet. And if that inner story is so loud of, I'll never do this, I'll never be able to do this, or this is the only way to do it, or I don't deserve it, or whatever it is, that imposter syndrome that can come up when you're doing something new. I've had that multiple times. I'm in a new season of my business again, where it's changing, and I'm like, I'm trying to learn from guys like you, Jordan, and getting on more stages and do more keynotes. And I'm like, well, in a lot of ways, I've been doing this for 15 years, but then the imposter syndrome of, well, but it's different. And you're not as good as you think you are. You got to learn, and you can't do it as well as they can. And that loud inner story creeps up for me. And because it's so loud, I don't hear the whisper of God of what he's trying to tell me of, hey, connect with this person. Try this idea in your next keynote. Like, have this conversation with somebody because they're going to encourage you. Talk about your book, The Art of Encouragement. They're going to encourage you, which is going to feed your soul just enough to get you through another day. And I've divinely appointed that person to feed you some life for a moment, to get you to tomorrow to do the next thing. Like, I'm not going to be able to pick up on those breadcrumbs if I have that loud inner story and it's not articulated and then dismantled. So it's a really important process. Doesn't have to take that long, but it's provocative when you do it because you see it and you're like, there's no way I tell myself that.
So true. And we all have a story that needs to be corrected or worked on, right? You can't fix what you're unwilling to acknowledge. So maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, I don't even really know if I have a story. You do, and you need to acknowledge it because you can't fix it unless you're willing to do the hard work of acknowledging what's getting in your way. Hey, bro, you're attacking the problem of conformity. I think you're also attacking the problem of comparison. And those two things run together. Give us some practical tips on how to avoid comparison. Because, man, we live in a world where so many of us are getting tripped up because we're looking at what our neighbor is doing or our competitor is doing. By the way, you just delivered an awesome message on social media about, ignoring the competition. Don't focus on your competitors because it's killing you. So give us some practical tips and ideas for avoiding this issue of comparison.
I mean, I think you have to know yourself. I think people are different on this. So like, I have taken times in my life where I've known that I'm not in a good spot. So the social media game, seeing other people, what they're doing, I just can't handle it in a healthy way. So I've gotten off of social media. The longest I went away from it was for a whole year. I just deleted everything for a year and disappeared for a year. Because I just knew I needed that personally. So it could be just knowing your limits and there's something powerful about setting a boundary for yourself, not because it's what someone else says you should do or what anyone else thinks is a good idea, but is good for you. So I had a business partner for years. We ran a membership site together. Good friend of mine, still is. Great dude. But I found myself getting really caught up in what he was doing with his business, his other business that he had on his own, and really was jealous of him. And I thought it was a really good idea. And I was like, I should have done that. And I had something was bad coming up in my heart around this guy. And so what I decided to do is just unsubscribe from his mailing list. I was like, I just can't even read Joe's emails anymore because it's not him, it's me. It's a classic. It's not you, it's me. And I just knew I got to not look at it. And Jordan, for me, in the ignoring your competitors video in that episode of the show was like, I have found for me, I do my best work when I put my head down and I just do what I feel like God's calling me to do. I get off track when I compare. The other thing though that's worked for me when I'm in a healthier spot is to look at people that might be a competitor or someone that I'm jealous of or whatever, and try to just make them my friend. Because if I see something in them that I want, it's because that's something I want there. If I see someone, like I could look at a guy like you, we'll just be real meta. All right, let's get real. I can look at a guy like you and I see some pictures of you in front of big stages. I see you teaching and speaking in all these incredible places. And I could say, dang, I wish I were as awesome as Jordan in this keynote space. I'm not there yet. And I could get jealous. Or I could say, how can I become Jordan's friend? Because he's doing something right. It's working. And I'm sure I could learn a lot. And I might actually like get an ally. Instead of looking at competitors, I view them as collaborators. At best, they could become your friend, and or even better, they could become business partners if we became collaborators. At worst, they're just not interested, but at least you tried. And so it's very much an abundance versus scarcity mindset. John Gordon, again, one truth, separateness versus oneness. And so if I'm jealous or comparing, there's usually something that I want that they have. And it's less about that person. It's more about something in me, which takes us back to the beginning of this whole rebel process. What do you want? It's okay to answer the question, what do you want? Because if you don't, you're just going to be frustrated your whole life. Ignoring what you want doesn't work. You're just stuffing it down. Getting clear about what you want and working through how can I have this in a healthy way, or what does that want telling me about something about the way I'm designed, that's a healthy place. So I think if it just pushes you back to being honest about what you want, that's a great thing too.
Craig Rochelle was on our show earlier this year, and he had this quote that he dropped that's just been ringing in my ears. And I've been thinking about it as you've been sharing today, Graham. Like, the quickest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. And so, bro, as we wrap up our time together, like, I just want to affirm you, who you are and what you've built is so special. Because I could do the same thing back to you, right? Like, I could look at all the online platforms you've built and like multiple companies, and you're doing stuff in real estate, and you wrote multiple books. One just sold 20,000 copies, like your last book. Like, I mean, you've just, you've done so much for a young guy who looks even younger than he actually is. A lot of wisdom in Graham Cochran. Y'all know that. But man, I want to reaffirm that what you've built is really special. And I'm proud of you for staying in a lane, for living out the call on your life, and then for ultimately writing a book about something that's really near and dear to you. This is a passion project. I know that. The best book you'll write is the one that you live. And I know this book is going to help and reach and touch a whole bunch of people. So, hey man, I want to ask you an open-ended question. Is there anything on your heart that you want to share with our listeners about this book, about this topic of conformity, comparison, anything you want to leave our listeners with as we wrap up today about this message?
Oh man, I don't want you to be the me 20 years ago, 19 years ago, disappointed and bitter. I almost felt betrayed when I didn't get my music dream. I was like legitimately shocked. Not because I feel like I'm arrogant, but like when you really like, this is a good thing, I feel like I can have it. And when it doesn't happen, you're actually surprised. That there was so much fallout from that, bro, of like, man, am I not good enough? Like that was like probably the first time I felt not good enough. Up until then, I felt like invincible. And that was a wound that I have been taking a decade plus to recover from. There was that. There was the bitterness towards God. Like, did you lie to me? I feel stupid now, Lord. I feel like this is the way you made me. My parents or anybody that like affirmed my talent, were they lying to me? Like, why did they encourage this if I wasn't going to make it? So I say all that to say, I don't want anyone to feel that. And if you have felt that, I don't want you to do what I did, which was to just put my head down and assume, well, that must be for other people, but not for me. I don't get what I want or truly desire. So this book, bro, the more I've like read it as I wrote it, and as I'm now sharing it, and we're doing the podcast trail and sharing it with people, it's like the more I'm getting fired up about the fact that God made you the way he made you. And like, if we're going to put it in a business frame, like Seth Godin always says, build a downhill business. Build a business that's just easy for you to execute. Like, come on. There's businesses I won't ever be good at because they'll be hard, but I might be able to do it if I push hard. Well, why? Why try to do something hard when you're uniquely wired to do something so beautifully, not without effort, but it just comes naturally because that's who you are, whether it's business, the way you raise your kids, the way you think about marriage, whatever. I want so desperately the listener figures out who you are. I believe that the secret to fulfillment, to joy, to satisfaction, to service to others, all of those things comes from finding yourself and walking in the way you're designed. It's that simple. And that's what I hope this book will do. Man, amen. Well, I know it will do just that. You are most effective when you're most authentic. Bro, you're authentic. You show up in the world so well. And listeners, we want you to chase your dream, pursue your dream. We want you to be the best version of yourself and to live into the God-given giftedness that God so uniquely designed you with. Your deepest hurt might become your greatest ministry. Your mess can become your message. God's not done with you. Graham, appreciate you pouring into us today. Where do we go to pre-sale order a copy of Rebel, Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd? Yeah, man. Just go to therebelbook.com. All the details are there. Therebelbook.com. Hey, I can't wait to dig in. I can't wait to get to know you better, bro. Our friendship is still in early stages, but God's used you in mighty ways in my life, and I know he's going to use this book in the lives of many. We're going to drop that link in the show notes. We're also going to be purchasing some books, large quantity of books, because Lord knows our community needs this message. I need this message because the quickest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. And I don't want to live that way. And I know you
don't want people to live that way, which is why you wrote the book. Man, I just appreciate your heart. Love who you are. Thanks again, man, for just investing in our community.
Bro, the pleasure's mine. You're a gem, dude. Keep doing what you do. Love it.
All right, bro. Hey, until next time, we'll chat soon. I'm coming to you next month in Tampa. Can't wait to be with you in person. God bless you, bro.
Yeah, man. Take care.
This has been another episode of the Growth Over Goals podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Montgomery. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being here. If you found any value in this episode, I would love it if you would rate, review, subscribe to this podcast in an effort that we might move our mission of impact forward. I also want to say thank you to our producers, John Choate and James Roth of Storyline Multimedia, for all of the work that they do behind the scenes to make this podcast go. Be well, be great. Have a wonderful day.